You keep saying you're tired, that you're lazy, that you just need to get your life together. But deep down, you know that's not the real problem. You've had days when you moved mountains, when you did the hard things, when you felt unstoppable, like nothing could break your focus. So what changed? Not your energy, not your willpower, but the why behind what you're doing. This isn't about discipline. It's about meaning. And the painful truth is, what you're doing no longer feels like it matters. You scroll through to-do lists, productivity apps, YouTube videos that promise the perfect morning routine, hoping one of them will fix you. But none of them do, because they're all trying to spark motivation. Without asking the most important question, motivation for what? If you woke up tomorrow with infinite drive, would it even matter? Would you be running faster? In the wrong direction? We live in a culture obsessed with productivity, but almost no one talks about purpose. Because that's the scarier question. That's the one that forces you to admit that maybe, just maybe, you've been climbing the wrong ladder all along. And once you realize that, it's not laziness you feel, it's disillusionment. It's not a lack of motivation, it's a lack of meaning. And the scariest part? You've known it for a long time. But pretending you're just burnt out is so much easier than admitting that your life has become something you no longer believe in. You wake up and feel nothing, not sadness, not pain, just a low hum of indifference that follows you everywhere, from the shower to your phone to your morning coffee. You're not crying, you're not breaking, but you're not here either. You're drifting. And somewhere along the line, that became your normal. You don't panic anymore when you realize you spent 3 hours doing nothing. You just scroll a little harder, tap through one more story, open a new tab, hoping it leads somewhere that feels like something. You've become an expert in distraction, and no one blames you, because distraction is easier than confrontation. It's easier to check your notifications than to ask yourself, do I even like the person I'm becoming? Most people never ask that, because when the answer is no, everything has to change. And that kind of truth hurts. So you find new ways to numb the ache, new routines, new playlists, new short-term goals that give you just enough of a dopamine hit to make it to the next week. But deep inside, something is still unsettled. Something whispers in the silence. And if you let that voice grow loud enough to hear, it says, this isn't what you're here for. That's why you can't focus. That's why every task feels heavier than it should. Because your soul isn't designed to chase things you don't believe in. And yet you keep telling yourself, if I just push harder, I'll eventually care. But caring doesn't come from force. It comes from alignment. From doing things that speak to something real inside you. Not just what impresses people, not just what pays well, not just what looks good on a resume or in a caption. You can fake discipline, you can fake energy, but you can't fake meaning, not for long. And the cracks are already showing, aren't they? You wake up and feel like you're already behind. You chase achievement, but it never feels like arrival. You say you want clarity, but clarity means choosing. And choosing means letting go of the life that's keeping you comfortable, but killing you slowly. That's the truth no one tells you. You're not unmotivated. You're surviving something your heart has already outgrown. There comes a point when you can no longer lie to yourself, not convincingly at least. You wake up and realize that the routines, the habits, the productivity hacks, they were never the answer. They were coping mechanisms dressed up as solutions, bandages over a wound that was never physical. So where do you go from here? You can't go back. You've already seen too much. You've tasted what it's like to move without passion, to chase goals that don't speak your language, to check every box and still feel empty. That kind of knowledge changes you. It demands something more of you. And here's where the real work begins. Not in fixing your morning routine, not in optimizing your calendar, but in asking a question most people spend their whole lives avoiding. What would make this worth it? Not tolerable, not efficient, but worth it? It's not a simple answer. Meaning doesn't come in one perfect revelation. It's built painfully, piece by piece, in the quiet hours where no one is watching. It's found in the friction of saying no to the easy path, in the awkward beginnings of something real, in the trembling yes you give to a direction that excites you and terrifies you at the same time. And most of all, it's found in the courage to stop lying to yourself about what you want. Because the truth is, you've known it all along. You've just been trying to talk yourself out of it because it doesn't make sense, because it's risky, because it might disappoint people, because it might break the illusion of who you're supposed to be. But here's what no one told you. The life you crave, the one that would finally make you feel alive, doesn't begin when everything makes sense. It begins when you choose to move anyway, when you stop needing permission, when you stop waiting for motivation to magically appear, when you stop outsourcing your purpose to algorithms, deadlines, and the opinions of people who don't live inside your skin. You say you need motivation, but what you really need is permission to be honest about what actually matters to you. Because once you have that, even just a thread of it, the fog starts to lift. Not all at once, but enough to take the next step. Enough to wake up with something real in your chest, even if it's small, even if it's fragile. And that small thread, that's the beginning of everything. Let's be honest now. Most people won't do it. They'll keep chasing the next thing, the next dopamine hit, the next false urgency. They'll keep pretending that a better app or a louder alarm clock will fix what's broken. They'll stay busy, distracted, and quietly they'll fade. But if you've made it this far, you're not like most people. There's something in you, a flicker, a pulse, that refuses to accept this version of life as final. And that flicker, that's sacred. That's yours. So protect it, feed it, even if you don't have a plan, even if you're still in the dark. Because here's the truth. You don't find meaning and then move. You move, and through that movement, meaning reveals itself. You start with the smallest act of rebellion. You stop betraying yourself. You stop pretending the job that drains you is just temporary. You stop saying yes when your gut screams no. You stop calling yourself lazy when what you actually are is misaligned, and you begin, not with a grand vision, not with a 5-year plan, but with one honest moment, one real yes, one difficult, quiet decision that nobody applauds, but that changes everything. Maybe it's writing again. Maybe it's leaving. Maybe it's picking up the phone or putting it down forever. Maybe it's just going outside without headphones and letting your mind wander toward what it's been aching to feel. It doesn't have to look impressive. It just has to be yours. Because the opposite of burnout isn't rest. It's alignment. It's waking up and knowing that your time is being spent in service of something that matters, even if no one understands it yet. And that kind of life, that kind of meaning, it doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It invites. It's quiet but clear, soft but immovable. And once you start listening to it, really listening, you realize it was never motivation you were missing. It was you, the real you, the one buried beneath all the noise and shame and borrowed expectations. So here's the final question. If you had one honest day, one day to live with full alignment, no excuses, what would you do? Start there and do it again tomorrow. Because your life isn't waiting on motivation. It's waiting on you. You'll try to forget this. You'll move on to the next video, the next tab, the next notification. Because staying with this feeling, this raw, uncomfortable awareness, hurts. But somewhere, later tonight, when it's quiet again, it'll come back. That subtle ache, that quiet voice, that question, is this really it? And in that moment, you'll have a choice. You can turn it off, like you always do. Or you can listen. Not to me, not to this video, but to yourself, because you've been trying to outrun something that only wants to be seen, not fixed, not silenced, just heard. And once you hear it, once you let it speak, you can finally start building a life that doesn't need to be escaped. No more pretending, no more distractions dressed as ambition. Just one truth. You don't need more motivation. You need more meaning. And that begins with a single decision: to stop running and start remembering who you were before the world told you to forget.